So now we're going to get into more Philly sports. That's your field of expertise. What exactly got you into Philly sports?
Well, if you're in this area, you're born into it. Even if you're not a sports fan, if you're from Philadelphia, you know about the teams because you're forced to. Even people who are peripheral fans and don't really care about sports too much, because of the way Philadelphia is, you know certain things, you know certain players. It's part of the news. It's a major part of the news in this area, and I mean they would have a major section that was usually the biggest section in the newspapers. So you have no choice. You're forced into it. But I mean, there's no better fans in the world.
Yeah, that's true. And you've been a diehard Philly sports fan for a long time. You know, painting your face, going to almost every Philly sports game. When did you start to get? When did you realize that you started to get recognized for that? Like people coming around and recognizing you, saying, "Hey, you're the Philly sports guy."
Well, the very first time that it really started to blow up was the Eagles-Saints game, playoff game in 2019. I went down there and I spent a lot of money and I got row one. And I went into that stadium 3 hours early and was all hyped up, just excited for the game. And John Clark made a video of me. And normally I just do an Eagles chant, but he was like, yeah, come on, keep coming. And I kept doing it, and Barstool Sports got it and said that I was the most sophisticated man in Philadelphia as I'm doing this video. And it wound up getting like 4 or 5 million views by the end of the game. Afterwards, I had somebody come up to me and say, wow, man, you went viral. And I'm like, what is that? What are you talking about? He's like, yeah, you got 5 million views. And then right after that, I had a production company reach out to me to do a commercial. And they said, wow, your energy is great. You're like the Philly sports guy. You should see if that name's available. And it was. And the rest is social media history.
Wow, that's very cool. That's very cool. I did not know that about you, so I'm sure a lot of people didn't. Who was your favorite all-time Philly sports player?
My all-time favorite is Rick McLeish. I would wear 19 most of the time when I was playing sports, and it was all because of Rick McLeish. I just loved the way he could shoot the puck. 19 has always been like one of my favorite numbers, and that was his number. And I don't know, I can vision him with slap shots and wrist shots. And I learned how to become a fan by being a Flyers fan because my mother also worked at the Spectrum. So as a 2-year-old kid, I'm thinking that I'm going to see my mom on TV. So I'd watch the Flyers game, and of course I'd never see her because she worked in a restaurant. She didn't work, on the ice. But you don't know that. And then I just would watch, and eventually he was just the player that mesmerized me. So an all-time favorite is definitely him.
It's very cool. And who's your current favorite Philly sports player?
I'm a big fan of Alec Boehm and JT Realmuto. They're the best right now. I'm also a Jason Kelce fan. Jordan Mailata is a huge fan, and we've got to become friends. So wow. Those guys are the ones that immediately stand out to me.
Now that, like you said, you become friends. Who's out of all the players that you met, who was the most likable, I guess you could say?
By far, Jordan Mailata.
Mailata?
By far. Just somebody who's, first off, when you see him, he's bigger than life. When you see somebody 6'7", 365 pounds, and then you start talking to him, and he's like a big teddy bear, you know what I mean? That he's got a great singing voice.
Yeah.
He came, and I did a beef and beer when I do a lot of charity work for the Eagles Autism Foundation. He came to my beef and beer, was only supposed to stick around for about a half hour, 45 minutes, stayed for 4 hours.
Wow.
And was just a pleasure to be around, donated a bunch of money as well. And I have friends that are in Australia that also, they're fans of his rugby team, and so they get in contact with me, and it's those things are just it's when you see how humble a guy he is, but yet how much of a beast he is on the field, you can't help but love him.
Yeah, that's the best part. He's so great at football.
Yeah. And you know what? He knew nothing about it.
Yeah.
He spent 4 years solely learning how to become an offensive tackle.
Yeah.
And now he's one of the best in the league.
Yeah, it's crazy. He has a great story, his story of how he came up in the NFL. What is your most memorable Philly sports moment in your lifetime?
It's funny because there's so many different ones that everybody chooses. But the one that I remember most, it was at a game I wasn't even at. I had my brother and I would watch every Eagles game, and that year, every one that we watched together, we had won. We didn't, there was 2 games that we didn't watch it together, and we both lost those games. And I had a girlfriend at the time who wanted to go kayaking. I come back home from kayaking, and the Eagles are down to the Giants, by I think 4 points. And I get on the phone with my brother, and I got my uncle in the background in his place yelling, because he was a 49ers fan, saying, "Oh, man, they're going to lose, ah." And I get on the phone, I'm like, "Really, you got to deal with that?" And then they punt the ball to Brian Westbrook, and he ran it back. They ran it back for a touchdown. And it was really the miracle of the Meadowlands, too.
Yeah.
It's just that nobody remembers that one because it didn't end the game. They still had to kick off afterwards. But that was the real, and just me and him yelling into the phone at each other because we finally got together and we got to watch the game, and they won that game, and it kept our streak alive.
Yeah, that's awesome. Currently, right now, the Eagles are 7-0. Phillies are in the World Series. You have the Union in the MLS Cup. Is this the greatest year of Philly sports that you have ever witnessed?
No, 1980. Interestingly enough, the only time that all 4 Philadelphia sports teams ever won within a 24-hour time span was October 21st into the October 22nd, and all 4 Philadelphia teams won their game. Now, obviously, there wasn't the Union back then, but excuse me, it was one day after my birthday. So it's something that I remember, and 1980, all 4 Philadelphia teams went to the championships. So it was something that you kind of remember and expect. At that point, we were all very good. Unfortunately, Leon Stickle was the referee that didn't call the offsides, and the Flyers lost. We lost to Magic Johnson playing for Kareem Abdul-Jabbar as the center, and they swept us. And then the Phillies wind up winning theirs, and then the Eagles, of course, lost to the Raiders. But that was just an amazing time, and you think that, we're going to be there every year, and it just doesn't work that way.
Yeah. Well, we had the Phillies game last night. Pretty rough game. They're series tied 2-2. How are you feeling about the rest of the series?
Fine. The fact that, that game, we got no hit yesterday, and it's history, whatever. First off, it would have been history if it was one pitcher who pitched a no-hitter. The fact that they used 4 pitchers, it's just another game. They were so hyped up. The crowd was not the atypical Philly crowd last night. I want to say that it was probably a little bit more corporate than normal, because even I was trying to get everybody riled up, and they just weren't feeling it.
Yeah.
And so I kind of expect tonight, for Game 3, when Harper hit that home run, it registered as a 2.4 earthquake on the seismograph over at Penn State. That is amazing when that kind of stuff like that happens. Last night, you could almost hear a pin drop. There was only Astros fans that you could hear. And we weren't even doing the things that would typically drown out the Astros fans. So that's why it wasn't a very typical Philadelphia crowd. I expect that the real fans are going to be back there tonight, and we're going to get that place rocking again.
I would sure hope so. Now we're going back to Houston. Are you going to go to Houston for the games?
I just booked my flight right before I got here, so I'm going to be there. Haven't gotten a ticket yet, but I'm working on that as well.
All right, love that. And final question here: what is your favorite sport?
You know, it's like asking what would be my favorite kid. I don't really have one. I love competition. You know, I've been, you know, it's funny because people show me pictures when they see me, whether it's a baseball game or a football game, they'll show me a picture of when they took of me somewhere else. And that I've also done the Stars, and you know, they're like, well, the Stars haven't even played in Philadelphia. Yeah, but they got the Philadelphia name, and they were in the championship. You know, when I go to the Union, I went to the Eagles game on Sunday, and then I left to go to, and then got painted up, repainted up, and went to the Union to watch them win the Eastern Conference. So I don't really have a favorite sport. I just have a favorite city, and I'm going to always support Philadelphia.
I love that. Love that. All right, well, Philly Sports Guy, thank you for coming out for the interview. And now up next we have the trivia.
All right, let's go Philly. Yeah!